Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon spoilers video. So over the past couple of days, we got some new and exciting cards to think about, and we also got a little bit of clarification on some of the news that was previously leaked before. So let's just dive right in and talk about them. First up, we have Shoutmon. So we already had Shoutmon DX shown earlier in the spoiler season. So it was no surprise that we got Shoutmon, and the Shoutmon is looking to be like a pretty solid Digimon. So he is your average red level 3, and stat-wise, he's really nothing too special to talk about there. But what is interesting is the fact that he has an on-play effect, and his on-play effect is actually really decent. So his on-play effect is we get to look at the top 5 cards of our deck, and then we get to choose one Digimon with Shoutmon in its name and one Digimon with the Blitz or Shingeki ability, and add that to our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So similar to how the Ragnarlordmon stuff interacted with like looking for Ragnarlordmon and a Legend Arms, this is basically doing something very, very similar where you're looking for a Shoutmon and you're looking for something with the Blitz or Shingeki ability. So just being able to add potentially 2 cards to your hand is very, very powerful, and definitely makes this card a really solid card to consider using if you're playing that style of deck. And then on top of which, I think this is something we haven't really seen before, but he also has an inheritable ability. So like I said, I don't think we've seen a level 3 with an on-play and an inheritable, so that's definitely something really interesting to point out. But his inheritable skill is actually pretty solid. So his inheritable ability is during your turn. If this Digimon has the Blitz or Shingeki ability, then this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. So yes, he is just a DP boost for those Blitz or Shingekis, but the fact that he has an on-play and an inheritable definitely make him a very, very solid Digimon to want to be playing and want to be using for that style of deck. And then, like I said, we already have Shoutmon DX as a possible search target, and then we're probably also going to be getting Omni or Omega Shoutmon in the set, so that is just another Shoutmon he could pull. You could also use him to pull himself, so there's just so many different targets, and then there's also so many potential targets with the Blitz or Shingeki ability, which, as we saw with Shoutmon DX, that he is definitely going to be playing around with a lot. So I definitely think this is going to be a pretty solid Digimon to be thinking about running for those style of decks, and I definitely think he's a pretty interesting Digimon. Next up, we have Black MetalGarurumon. So Black MetalGarurumon, stat-wise, isn't doing anything too different from your average level 5 purple Digimon, so nothing too special there, but he does have a really solid main ability of Digiburst 3. So his Digiburst 3 ability allows you to play a purple level 3 Digimon from your trash for free, and then you don't get its on-play ability. So I'm not entirely sure if this ability is super, super great or not. Depending on how you build your stack, this ability could be really, really good, because I don't necessarily know if purple has like the best low-level inheritables. Like, I think their best one is going to be on the Digitama slot, and you do have to get rid of that, but I think the benefits that could possibly outweigh the cost. And then purple in the previous set already got a little bit of Digiburst synergy, so you could play something like Gomamon to add them back to your hand, and then revive something, and basically this ability is just in here to set up whatever mega you're going to be playing with, or just setting up some really good combo plays to either aggress with or use that Digimon as sacrificial fodder. So I definitely think that this ability is really, really good, on top of which this also still just combos with Anubismon, where if you just have an Anubismon sitting on the field, then you could Digivolve up into Black MetalGarurumon, use his Digiburst ability to just res something, and then that Digimon will gain Rush. So that way it could attack right away, and that's still just very, very powerful to think about. So I definitely think that just his Digiburst ability alone is really, really solid. And then on top of that, he even gives an inheritable skill, where the skill that he gives is when attacking once per turn, you get to destroy one Digimon you control to make this Digimon active. So this ability is already pretty solid just because it allows you to aggress onto the opponent's security and kind of do something similar to what Blue is doing. And we've already seen this ability before on WereGarurumon all the way in BT02. So it's not like seeing it again is going to be that big of a surprise, but this does interact with a whole bunch of possible megas. So this interacts with Chaos Gallantmon, where you could use this Digimon to sacrifice the Digimon you just revived, and then Chaos Gallantmon's ability will revive something, so you could set up that line of play there. And then this also could just fit in nicely with the purple MetalGarurumon from BT02, where he has the on-attack revive something, then you sacrifice the thing you revived with this on-attack skill, and then you could stand it up and then attack something again, and then revive another Digimon with his ability again. So there's just a whole bunch of possible outcomes that this card can bring to the table, and I think this is going to be a pretty solid card for those purple decks. Next up, we have BanchoLilymon. So I believe she is the last Bancho that we were missing, and now we have all of the Banchos in the game. So that's just one really interesting thing to think about, that we just already have all of the Banchos. But BanchoLilymon is a pretty solid Digimon. Stat-wise, she's really doing nothing too special compared to a lot of other megas, but what is interesting is the fact that she has a when destroyed ability, where you get to choose one of the opponent's rested Digimon and then put it onto the bottom of the deck and then trash all of its evolution sources. So she is basically like a terror cluster on legs, and the ability goes off when she's destroyed. I'm not super thrilled with the fact that it has to be on her destruction, because I'm not super thrilled with megas having like on-destroyed abilities that you really want to get off, and you definitely want this to get off, but at the same time, this is basically like almost giving another Digimon retaliation, except instead of destroyed, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So that's one interesting thing you could think about, is just playing her, and then just her when destroyed ability could apply a lot of pressure onto the opponent, because green already has a whole lot of ways of resting the opponent's Digimon down, and then you could use that opportunity to have BanchoLilymon attack into them, and then her skill will trigger if they're larger than her, and then she could help get rid of them. Or you could just use her to just try to apply pressure onto the opponent, similar to how just retaliation works. So I definitely think she's going to be a really, really interesting mega to be playing around with. It's just, I don't know exactly how much play she's actually going to be seeing, just because, again, I'm not super thrilled with megas having on-destroyed abilities, just because most of the time you don't want them to be destroyed to get the ability off. You just want them to apply a whole bunch of pressure onto the opponent, and you want your megas to stick around for as long as possible. But again, I don't think that she's a bad card. She's definitely better than BanchoLilymon, unfortunately. As much as I love BanchoLilymon, I just have to admit that he sucks, and this is just what he probably should have been, except now it's on BanchoLilymon. So it is what it is, but regardless, she's definitely going to be a really interesting mega to be playing around with, nonetheless, just because she's basically green's version of retaliation. Next up, we have Bluecomon. So Bluecomon is a pretty solid level 3 blue Digimon. He does have some slightly different stats that we haven't really seen a whole lot of before, where he is a 4 cost to play, 0 to evolve, 3000 DP. This is a Digimon you'd rather not play, but you want to Digivolve up into. I don't think the fact that he has 3000 DP matters, just because he's not really a hyper aggressive or a hyper efficient at being aggressive Digimon, but what is really good is his inheritable ability. So his inheritable ability is during your turn, once per turn, when a Digivolution source is discarded from one of your opponent's Digimon, then you gain 1 memory. So this is basically doing the exact same thing as the promo Gomamon. So in case you couldn't get the promo Gomamon, then Bluecomon is basically fulfilling that same role. And I definitely think that his ability to manipulate the memory for basically doing exactly what your deck is already doing is just really, really good. Because again, you gaining more memory just allows you to extend your plays, and it allows you to do more. And definitely with the whole focus on Hexablaumon, being able to just lock the opponent out of being able to use their Digimon effectively, then that definitely makes this card a lot better of a card that you want to be playing around with, just because he has an inheritable skill you actually want to use, similar to how Gomamon was working before. So I definitely am really, really liking what this card is doing, and I think this card is going to be great for those decks that are going to be trying to attack the opponent's evolution sources. And then the last card that we got over the past couple of days is going to be a new version of Omnimon. So this Omnimon is pretty interesting just because his stat line is completely different than all of the other Omnimons. His play cost is the same at 15, so you're definitely never going to be playing him. But his Evo cost is a lot lower than the other Omnimons, where his Evo cost is only 4 off of red or blue. So that's just one really big aspect of the card, is the fact that he is a more memory efficient Omnimon, and then as a result he does have some slightly lower DP than a lot of the other Omnimons, where he only has 14,000 DP instead of 15. So he is a little bit weaker, but he does have a slew of really powerful abilities. So his first ability is he has a when Digivolved ability of Blitz or Shingeki. So this just allows you to basically Digivolve up into him and attack regardless if the memory is on the opponent's side or not. So it guarantees the fact that you're going to be attacking with this Omnimon. And then on top of which, he has another when Digivolving ability where you make this Digimon active. So you could swing with your lower level Mega first, and then Digivolve up into Omnimon, and then make this Digimon active, so that way you could use the Blitz or Shingeki ability to then swing again with this Omnimon. So that's just, again, some more powerful synergy that he has with himself, and that's just a more aggressive line of play than the other Omnimons. And then on top of all of that, he even has another ability where during both players' turns, if this card would be destroyed by a card effect or returned to the hand or deck due to an opponent's card effect, then you get to trash one level 6 from his evolution source to basically negate the effect. So he even has some built-in protection, so that way he is going to be even harder to remove. Unfortunately, he is still vulnerable to being attacked into, but that's just a good thing. If he just was completely invulnerable, then this card would be insane. So I definitely think that this is a more aggressive take on Omnimon, and I definitely really like the fact that they are playing with different ways of utilizing these cards, because as we kind of see with all of the other Omnimons, they've kind of been following this very, very similar formula where they have a pretty solid removal ability and then they have a pretty solid other ability that kind of synergizes with both colors that he came from. So the fact that this is just a more aggressive take on Omnimon where he doesn't have a removal ability is definitely really, really good, because we just already have so many level 7s that can remove stuff from the game, and I feel like those are definitely more control aspects of how level 7s are played, and it's really nice to see a more aggressive level 7, similar to how Ragnarlordmon was working. So I definitely think that this is going to be a pretty interesting card to be playing around with, and I think that this is going to be a pretty decent card, especially knowing that the Shoutmon line is going to be playing with the Shingeki ability, so you could use this with like Shoutmon DX to set up a whole bunch of level 6s in his Evo source, so that way you could have multiple instances of protection rather than just a one and done. On top of which, Shoutmon also interacts with the Blitz or Shingeki ability, so you could use the level 3 to help search out this Omnimon, and I definitely think that this is going to be a pretty interesting card to be playing around with in a whole bunch of different decks, just because of how different he is than the other Omnimons. But I do really like what this card is doing, and I definitely think this card is going to see a decent amount of play. So that's it for all of the cards that we got over the past couple of days. And then, like I said, we got some clarification on some of the news that we got, where we're getting a new booster set, BT06, for Japan, and they're also getting some new starter decks. So we have a leaked image of the work-in-progress version of the starter deck. So it's definitely going to be pretty interesting to see what is going to be coming out of the starter deck, whether these are going to be alt arts, reprints, or just good cards to synergize with what we currently have, or if they're going to be completely new stuff. It's all going to be really, really interesting to see how these develop, because each time they've done starter decks, they have done it a little bit differently than the batch before. So I'm definitely excited to see where this batch is going to be going in terms of how they're going to be designed. So this is the All Force one, and then this is the Gallantmon one. So we already knew that Gallantmon was getting some support in BT05, and the fact that now he's getting a starter deck, on top of which his previous incarnation was already a pretty decent Digimon, definitely means there's going to be a lot of hype and focus around Gallantmon in some capacity, and I think that's going to be really, really interesting because it shows that they are willing to support some of the older decks, on top of which they are also bringing new life to new versions of the deck as well. So I'm definitely really excited to see what is going to be coming from this. And then on top of that, we even have some new sleeves that are going to be shown. I know this is a really low quality image, but that's not exactly my fault. But we definitely have a new set of Digimon sleeves on the way. And what's really, really interesting is the fact that we have Pulsemon on one of them. And Pulsemon is a new Digimon that is coming out with like the fitness watch or like Fitbit type device that they have. So the fact that he's going to be put on a sleeve is definitely really, really interesting, and I really like his design actually. And then we just have some other really good looking sleeves, so that's also something we could be excited for, just more Digimon sleeves. And then on top of all of that, we even got a tiny bit more clarification on BT06, where we get a little bit of a leaked image showing the Kizuna forms of Agumon and Gabumon. So I believe the double diamond was referring to these two being basically the diamonds. And seeing them in the set is definitely going to be really, really interesting because not only are we getting more Agumon and Gabumon support, but who knows what else is going to be in the set. And I really hope that they use this set to kind of like be like an anniversary kind of a set where they go back to some of the old mechanics that they already laid out and they start expanding on them even more. So they could expand on security Digimon, they could expand on just everything that came before it. And they really start updating a lot more older decks and bring some life into some new decks, kind of like what they have been with BT05, but with more focus on updating some of the older decks rather than creating some new decks. But that's just what I wish out of the set. Who knows what the set is actually going to end up being like, but the fact that the double diamond is referring to the Kizuna forms of Agumon and Gabumon is definitely something really, really interesting. So overall, I definitely think that BT05 is looking like a really solid set. I'm not seeing anything like too crazy, super over-the-top powerful, and I definitely think that this is a really well-designed set so far based on what we've seen. And again, I'm not really seeing too much power creep. I'm just seeing a lot of cards doing very similar things, but done a little bit differently, and then some new things coming into the game. And I just think the set so far is going to be looking like it's a really solid set. And it gives me some really big hope for the longevity of Digimon, considering we're 5 sets in and there's no like huge egregious signs of power creep. Maybe a couple of bad designed cards here or there, but like nothing that can't be fixed with some ban lists. But regardless, I definitely have a lot of hope and a lot of faith in Digimon based on what I've seen so far. And yeah. That's kind of all I really have for this video. So as always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you in the next video.